Yeah, I think, sometimes you have a main event that is, a big world championship fight, and you kind of struggle to build a card beneath it because, you've made a big investment to that main event. Here, we've done that at a slightly smaller level, at European level. So it's given us the ability to just stack the card with brilliant fights. But to do that, you need fighters that are willing to fight anybody. I mean, I heard Darren talk about Conor Walker against Lewis Crocker. It's just a brilliant fight. And, for an undefeated fighter like Lewis Crocker, who we're talking about headlining, the Odyssey in a massive fight, to take the fight in Conor Walker's backyard, when you know what the guy's all about. And I'm not saying he's Sugar Ray Leonard, but what he is a proper dog. And can really fight. And he's massively underrated as a boxer. But what we know him as a fighter and a tenacious young man that will take Lewis Crocker to the deepest depths he can. Now, we know about the power of Lewis Crocker. How good is he? Yeah. We're about to find out. Then, of course, you've got Cameron Bong, against Jordan Flynn. Everyone can't wait to see it. It's going to be great. Emma Dolan against Shannon Ryan, great fight. Kane Baker against Aki Fiaz. Loads of young talent as well. I just feel like in this city, and, this man to my left is going to be headlining here soon later on this year as well in a massive fight. I think we've got a real chance here to build something, and a lot of good fighters that are willing to take great fights. I think June 22nd as a card is a real banger.
Tyler kept talking about the inactivity of Felix Cash there. What do you make of the link up with Adam Booth?
Yeah, it's a good bit. Sometimes when you need to change, he had a bad hand injury, he had some personal problems as well. And sometimes you need a change of environment. He was very close with Tony, had a great run together, especially the Jack Cullen win and particularly the Denzel Bentley win as well on BT. Sometimes you just need to freshen everything up all round. And, he did that with Adam Booth, who's an outstanding trainer as well. But he has got a lot of questions to answer on June 22nd. I mean, there has been times where, he's been injured, he's been unlucky, but sometimes, his mindset hasn't been 100%. And again, I say the same thing. He's coming into Tyler Denny's backyard, who is a very good fighter, and when he was reeling off the victories there, Brad Ray's a good fighter. Like, to go to Manchester and beat him. You also saw the win against Brad Pauls, who had a great fight, of course, as well recently for the British title. So, he can fight, and he's here in front of his home crowd. But to come back from the year or so out and beat someone in their backyard for the European title would be a major statement for Felix Cash. But you know what? You've got to do it, because he's lost that many opportunities. He can't afford to come back in an 8-rounder or a 10-rounder in a nothing fight. You've got to go straight in the deep end, because you know what? If you are world-class, you'll beat Tyler Denny.
Would you say pressure is on Felix for that? I mean, you hear it all the time. It's a must-win. You must win this to progress and move forward, which is the case with every contest. But do you feel there's more pressure on Felix here because of that sort of stop-start career?
Honestly, we tend to say this to a lot of pressers. I think his career's on the line, because I'm not sure he can bounce back from defeat here on June 22nd. He's been through a lot. He's got back in the ring now, but the suffering of that defeat would set him back. To come back from that again, it's very difficult to do. So, there's a lot of pressure on Felix Cash. A guy that when he beat Denzel Bentley, we were looking at potentially fight for the WBO world title. I mean, that was an unbelievable performance. He's got the ability, but if he gets taken into deep waters, we'll see what his character's about. It's all very well talking about, I'm back, I'm better than ever. It's all of a sudden when you get through 7 or 8 rounds and he's got a couple of thousand people, there's 6,000-7,000 Brummies in there or Midlanders causing, loads of noise, and it's on top. That's when you've got to dig deep. And I do believe Felix will have to dig deep in this fight.
When you talk, Eddie, about, sometimes I think fights are difficult to make because these fighters are scared of losing just because of what it might mean for their future. But is that a stigma you almost need to try and get rid of? And is that why it's helped you to make Jordan Flynn against Cameron Bond?
Yeah, you know what? Everyone's different. Everyone's at different stages. For some people, a loss in their career would be like devastating. Like Galal. Galal won the Olympic gold, right? If he gets beat in his first 3 or 4, and he's moving like a train, and he's in tough 10-rounders, but if he loses his O early on, it is an absolute disaster. Then you've got fighters like Conor Walker that don't get TV opportunities, just are prepared to roll the dice. So, but now he's on a run. His mindset is, I don't care. I'll fight anyone. I was surprised with the Jordan Flynn Cameron Bong fight because, Cameron's only been in some, very, very early fights in his career, and Jordan doesn't really want to lose to a 3-4-0 fighter. So, but I like that, and it's like, look at the profile that fight has given both of them. If you get beat, you're always going to land another fight. And you're only as good as your last fight, and you can always bounce back. So everyone's different in terms of stages in their career. Of course, when you're building a superstar, to lose your O at a certain level would be a disaster. But at this level, don't worry about it. You know, and that's why I like people like Conor Walker, because we always look for pedigree in fighters, right? Like Galal, you know, they come through, they win Olympic gold, you know, this is a serious talent. But it's not just, and he knows this, it's not just about the ABA championships and the world championships and, you know, the Olympic golds. Sometimes it's about coming through something and learning on the job and coming back stronger. And that's where Conor Walker is dangerous. He has no fear. He has no regard for an O that doesn't even exist. He's just looking at it now going, if I beat this guy, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to pay off my mortgage. I'm going to send my kids to private school. And I'm going to be able to go on the best holidays I can and achieve everything I always dreamed of in my family. That is a dangerous man. Not a guy that's gone through and had funding for so long. And it's not their fault they've had funding, because they've earned it and they're good enough to get it. But Galal knows what, you know, he knows. He's fought some tough people in Mexico that have had no help, no promoter. They are dangerous in this pro game with small gloves on. And, you know, you always choose pedigree over a good story. But every now and again, a good story, you know, you find someone that is very, very dangerous and tough to beat. And right now, with this mindset, that's Conor Walker.
Bit of history on the card as well. The inaugural title, British title, Shannon Ryan, Emma Dolan.
They were going at it then as well. You know, it's exactly the kind of fight.
What was said down there?
Shannon feels that, I think she was saying that Emma Dolan's disrespected her in interviews, and obviously she pulled out in February, so there's a little bit of that backwards and forwards. But you've got a lot of great domestic fighters coming through at the moment, and now you're starting to see those fights getting made. So Emma Dolan against Shannon Ryan, good example. Maisie Rose against Chloe Watson, another example, right? And that's really good, because now you're getting the liquidity of talent in women's boxing. You're not just going like 5-0, 6-0 in a couple of 8-rounders and then fighting for the world title. You're having to go through British, Commonwealth and European level now, which is exactly how it should be. But because now you've got the talent pool to be able to have those fights. Before, you have 4 or 5 fights, there's no one else to fight, you fight for a world title. Now, if you beat Emma Dolan, or if Maisie beats Chloe Watson, they've earned the right, and they've been in the kind of fights to go and challenge for a world title. So that's a great fight.
You're talking about this man headlining cards, he already has done, but of course later this year as well. What about the talent coming through? You mentioned Hamza Uddin, obviously Ibrahim Suleiman as well. You were very impressed with Hamza, weren't you?
Yeah, really impressive, because it put a smile on my face. You know, I'm looking round, I'm looking at Darren commentating, he's all excited, and that's really what you want. It's like, you know, again, like when Galal fights, don't stop throwing punches, don't stop coming forward. Rob's not always over the moon with that, but it's an entertainment business. And when you're coming out at the level that Hamza is and those guys, you've got to be knocking those guys out and going through them. I mean, Galal started over 10 rounds in championship fights. For Hamza, who's also got good amateur pedigree, not in the same level, you just got to go through these guys. And sometimes you've got to take a few chances, because that's what people want to see. But boxing in the Midlands has just always baffled me, because it's never really taken off like a Liverpool or a Leeds or a Newcastle. And now I think we're starting to see that. I've seen some good shows in Birmingham. This is a great show. But everyone's got like their pockets of support where they do like 300-400 tickets each. You add those up over a card, plus the general sale, you start looking towards 5, 6, 7,000. I think that's the kind of numbers you're going to do here. And, you know, you need someone to headline, and we've got that in Cash against Denny. But this guy is the guy who's going to be fighting for world championships in the city. And the fights that are ahead of him, domestic fights with Sonny, fights with Estrada, maybe fights with Bam. You know, if you can bring one of those to this city, you can build an incredible card beneath it, and you can start doing 10,000 plus. And why not?
Eddie mentioned Sonny Ed was there. Sonny was ringside commentating on DAZN this past weekend. For you, Galal, are you ready in the next year? You believe you'll be a world champion?
Yeah, of course. I know that the Sonny fight's been mentioned a few times, Ed. I'm ready for that whenever he's ready for it. I'm sure Rob's happy with that. Just waiting for the call, waiting for you to put that on the table for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sonny's got to fight Curiel, which is a very tough fight in Phoenix, you know, in his backyard. But if he comes through that, honestly, like, I would love to make Galal against Sonny this year. I think it's a brilliant fight. And again, like, 2 guys, Galal's ready to roll the dice. He doesn't feel like he's rolling his dice in that fight, but Sonny's continuously rolled the dice. He's gone out, he's fought Bam, he's fighting Curiel. You can't knock what he's done in the sport as well. Ideally, you'd always love that to be for a world title. But I also don't want to wait for it. Like, you know, let's get it made if it's there. It's a great time for boxing globally, and we've got to make great fights in this country, and that's a cracker.
It'll be a week after this, June 29th, Estrada and Bam Rodriguez. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, Bam's on a roll at the minute. You know, it could be one of them ones where one's on the way out and one's becoming a superstar, and I think that's the case with this one.
What do you think about Sonny against Curiel?
I think Sonny be too smart for him. I don't think Curiel's as good as what people think. I think that Nanshinga just had a bad night, and he showed afterwards, didn't he?
I've got to ask you, Eddie, just about some recent news. I think we all woke up and were like, what on earth was going on last night in Las Vegas? Firstly, reaction to the press conference, the comments from Oscar De La Hoya. It was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, I think there's a huge history between those two. It's very bitter. And I think part of it is that hatred from Oscar to Canelo Alvarez. You know, he left them. They went to court. You know, really affected the business of Golden Boy because Canelo was the flagship. And then there's the element of trying to rattle Canelo Alvarez and make him get in a fight with Jaime Munguia, which I think is a really tough fight, by the way, as well. So, yeah, it's a shame, you know, and obviously there's a lot said about stealing money from fighters, and, you know, it's not a good look, but it is what it is. You know, you give me those two men, and I'll back Canelo Alvarez every day of the week. Proper guy with great morals, great values, and a hell of a fighter. Both great fighters, but it's really a relationship between those two that is not pleasant at all because of things that have happened. So it is what it is. You let them two, you know.
Are you disappointed the way De La Hoya is conducting himself? Like, I'm firstly talking about myself here. I was a big fan of Oscar, and see the way he's carrying on now.
Yeah, but he's now, you know, he's a promoter. I mean, we don't all have to behave like that, but I don't know. He's a complex guy. I think that's the best way to describe it. But also, he's making noise, and sometimes the job of a promoter is to make noise. For Oscar, it's very difficult when you've been a pound-for-pound legend and a superstar of the sport to not think you're still a superstar of the sport. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you see that sometimes with the fighters. I think what he'll always struggle with is to understand that the fighters are the boss and you do as you're told. And honestly, and I'm not just saying this, but my mentality, even amongst Hamza Uddin in his first fight on Saturday, he's my boss, right? He doesn't box for me, I work for him. And it's very difficult when you've achieved what Oscar's achieved to have that same mentality.
Still got that fighter in him,
yeah, you have, but, you know, also, he's, you know, sometimes I see him commenting on pictures of me saying, here, mate, I'm thinking, mate, you're a pound-for-pound Hall of Famer. I'm just a chubby promoter winging it from Essex, you know, so chill out, relax, enjoy your life. But he's a very emotional guy, and as I said, he's complex as well, but, you know, he's putting on good fights, and he's making noise, and noise is good, you know, and that was, you know, I spoke to Canelo last night, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if he knocked him spark out. At the weigh-in, yeah, I mean, he'll chin him.
Serious?
No, Canelo will chin Oscar De La Hoya. He wouldn't hesitate. Would not hesitate. And then, of course, a couple of hours later, I go to sleep. I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Devin Haney's miscalled me.
What was your reaction to that news?
I'm like, well, you're right. And then it's all broken about Ryan Garcia, you know, which Devin Haney is furious. You've got a guy who's come in 3.5 pound overweight and has now been proven to have performance-enhancing substances in his body during the fight. And Devin's furious. You know, he feels like he's been cheated, he feels like he's been robbed. Of course, the New York State Athletic Commission will look into that, and they're very good at what they do. It will be extremely thorough. But I will say, I've been on both sides of this before, the fighter needs the opportunity to prove their innocence. In this situation, unfortunately for the fighters, we've seen it so many times, guilty until proven innocence. One thing we know for sure is that Ryan Garcia had performance-enhancing substances in him during that fight. How? Why? Whatever, that's now down to Ryan and Golden Boy to prove that. I've been through it. I hope they have the resilience, I hope they have the mentality and the strength to deal with what is about to come. Because I've seen it break fighters, I've seen fighters come out the other side, and where Ryan's at the moment, you can't just say, oh, this is a joke, someone's got it in for me. It don't work like that, mate, because that's not the case. We know the facts of that now. If they were there intentionally, unintentionally, whatever it was, it's now on you to prove your innocence. Because right now, the view of the boxing world is, well, it's fact. You had performance-enhancing drugs in your system when you fought Devin Haney. So he will push for an immediate no contest, you know, which I think will be granted by the State Athletic Commission, because regardless of how it got in there, it was in there. So Devin Haney lost to a guy who was 3.5 pounds overweight and had performance-enhancing drugs in his system. Right now, he's furious. And he's thinking, I mean, if I weren't up against it on the weight, but again, Ryan deserves his opportunity to prove his innocence. And that is a tough, tough fight to win.
What have you done to upset Tank Davis?
Tank Davis, he's such an idiot sometimes. Like, and I DM'd him this morning. And I said, you talk some shit, you do. What is your... One, don't delete the tweet. If you've got something to say it. Why do you want to tweet? I mean, firstly, you're accusing me of being behind Ryan Garcia. I mean, are you, like, what planet do you live on? And then you want to delete your tweet, even worse. You stand by what you say, don't worry about it. So anyway, it's like, he just says some ridiculous things. But you know, at the end of the day, we never want to see a fighter test positive in our sport. Ryan Garcia produced an incredible performance that lifted his career and lifted the sport through people, and unfortunately we've taken 17 steps back in this situation. So I don't worry about what Gervonta Davis says, and if he's got something to say, he can always call me, you know, or whatever, but don't delete it, stand by what you say. But, you know, it is what it is, stupidity. But the facts are the facts. Now, again, intentionally or unintentionally, you have to answer to that. I've been through it a dozen times on both sides of the fence, and it ain't easy. And this is going to be a tough fight to win for Ryan Garcia and Oscar De La Hoya.
Final one, Ed. How excited were you to get the little market stall pitch in at the end of the press conference there today, when you look at what's coming up on DAZN?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've all been a part of this journey for a long time. Listen, when I went into America and I was trying to convince fighters to leave, you know, or the contracts was up with PBC or Top Rank, and I was trying to convince them to join DAZN. So what is it again? No, it's an app that's going to be the home of boxing. Right, okay. Now you look at the schedule. There isn't one major fight anywhere in the world that is not on DAZN, right? And you look at this run coming up. You know, of course, you just had Haney against Garcia. You got Canelo against Munguia. We're in Mexico next week for a great card. Then you've got Fury Usyk, right? Then you've got Catterall against Taylor. Then you've got Bivol Beterbiev in the 5v5. Then you're going into Subriel Matias against Liam Paro. Bam against Estrada. Boots is homecoming in Philadelphia, plus another big show to be announced in July in the UK as well. August 3rd, you know, in Los Angeles now, with probably the best card ever seen. It is unbelievable, the content that is landing on DAZN. It's unrivaled, home of boxing. And we're very proud of what's been built, and we're very proud also, and particularly pleased to say, I told you so. I told you so. And we're here to stay. Like I said, unrivaled.
Eddie, thanks so much for joining us. We are just going to give you all a reminder again about the tickets and where you can purchase them this weekend. Pre-sale well underway for this one. Always entertaining to be joined by promoter Eddie Hearn, isn't it? A few clips there. And here we are on general sale tomorrow, Friday the 3rd of May at midday.